Morning, Claire.
Morning, Dave.
Emily.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Hey, John. Well, some people are late to the party. We've got Renee Rodriguez joining us this morning. A little training he and I worked on. Some scripting for setting expectations with clients, and then, teeing it up for referrals and teeing it up for, a pretty good survey response. But since, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there he is. Renee's joining us. I'm sure we're going to have other people jumping on here quickly, but let's go around the room. Claire, you're at the top of the list. Let's do some gratitude announcements. What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful that my weekends have been jam-packed with being outside and just enjoying that beautiful weather. So
That was
enjoying
nice.
Colorado weather.
There you go. I'm grateful for a 2-hour motorcycle ride this last weekend. I'm sorry, 100-mile motorcycle ride. It took longer than 2 hours.
I'm grateful we were able to get we were on a waiting list for my daughter's kindergarten class, and we just got the call 3 days ago that she was in. So we got the call on Saturday, which is kind of weird, but we'll take it.
That's cool. Are they going to be in-person classes?
Yeah, and this particular school isn't requiring that they wear masks or whatnot, which is why we were on a waiting list. So we're really excited about not having to deal with that.
Cool. Right on. Jacqueline, how about you?
I am grateful I got to see a whole bunch of my friends this weekend.
A whole bunch of your friends?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Lily?
I'm just grateful for a good, relaxing weekend. I didn't do much. Javier was out of town for a couple of days. So I just spent the weekend just watching movies and just relaxing.
When are you moving?
We're moving on the 15th, so it's on a Sunday.
Like next weekend?
Yes. Yeah, next weekend. Yeah, I know. 2 more weeks.
I can see behind you. You need to pack more.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that this weekend.
Hi, Renee. Welcome to our Coffee for Closers meeting. What are you grateful for this morning?
What am I grateful for? A lot, actually. I'm grateful that I have good friends that allowed me to have cool technology during this pandemic.
Okay, that's awesome. Emily?
I am grateful to be closing my first purchase transaction as we speak.
Like today?
Like today, right now.
Excellent.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. Is it closing on time?
Sure is.
Under budget?
Sure is.
No surprises?
Yep, literally got an email from the agent saying thanks for closing on time, hassle free.
There you go. Good job. Well done. Ryan?
I am grateful that my brother, he's in the Air Force down in Florida. For a while there, they were saying that he wasn't going to be able to come to my wedding, and it looks like he's probably going to be able to come. So that was super cool news that came this weekend. I'm super grateful for that.
Right on. That is pretty cool. That's awesome that he's going to do that too. John, how about you?
Grateful that all the subs for my house remodel are showing up when they say they're going to show up, because that's just doesn't happen very often. So
I was just going to say that's not nothing.
that's not nothing at all. So grateful that's going well and moving forward.
That's awesome. Good job. Annie?
Yeah, I'm grateful for a relaxing weekend as well. We went hiking up in Evergreen and it felt like fall and it was really nice. So we're super busy, so it's nice to just have a relaxing weekend.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We're starting to appreciate those weekends, aren't we?
Definitely.
Yeah. Tom Tacker, how about you?
I'm also grateful for a nice weekend up in the mountains. Got to do a quick little backpacking trip. So caught some fish and got out in nature a little. So it was really nice.
Awesome. Casey, I think you moved around on the screen. I don't think I got you yet. By the way, that is a really impressive mustache.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful my wife has not divorced me for having a mustache like this right now, but we have masks on, so no one can see it in public. I'm grateful that we spent a weekend. We got to celebrate just my wife and I, just one night in the mountains, but it was amazing because we didn't have our kids. And I love my kids, but it's really nice to get away every once in a while. Yeah. So that was awesome.
Right. Right on. That's awesome. All right. Well, great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing. So Renee and I were working yesterday on Renee and I kind of connect every day, working on different things and different projects. And the subject of setting the right expectation with the clients is some great training. I'm going to record this. Actually, it is recording. Some great training opportunity here for, especially if you're a little bit newer, but even if you're not. It's one of the things that I've always thought was interesting about the business is that we get great reviews, and then our clients don't refer us nearly as often as you'd think they would refer us, given how much they rave about our service and how much they say they would use us or refer us in the future. We just don't see as many referrals as possible. And so I know that one of the things that we can actually do is become a lot more intentional about doing that. And so you're going to see a script here that is pretty interesting. And actually, I kind of debated Renee a little bit on this while we were kind of updating it. This was a script that he put together, I think, back after the financial crisis. And we just kind of updated it for today's reality, I guess. And Renee, do you have a copy of the script, or do you want me to share a copy of the script?
I have the one that we did yesterday, and unless you made changes to it.
No, I haven't.
Cool. Then I have that one, and I'm happy to put it up there and walk through it. Yeah, but I think there's the context to it. I think is important. Just let me know when you want me to go into all of that.
Go ahead.
Cool. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me here today. I think that when in our conversations, you guys are in a crazy time period in terms of just how much business is coming in, how much opportunity is there, the change, the fact that we're not in person and we're doing this way, and the easy things are to remember or to lose sight of are what is it that causes stress for a client. And research after research, it's not about the fact that we miss things. It's about a missed expectation. And, I always give the example, if you ever somebody giving you a soda, like you think it's Sprite, but it was actually milk, and you're having this expectation of you think it's whatever it is, and it's some other drink. And the moment you have it, there's this shock to the system because you had an expectation. And life is all about managing expectations. And so during the financial crisis, I did write this because people were missing things left and right. And there were so many people that were upset. And so this came back out when the whole world of reviews started coming back up, where people now in the past, if we missed a deadline, if we did something bad, they would tell their closest friends about how horrible it was. And now they turn to a computer and they turn to Yelp and they can tell thousands of people about how horrible an experience was. And so we wanted to try to go out there and preempt that by doing this conversation. And before I show it to you, the first thought you may have is, wow, it's 2 pages. That's a long script. And it's more of a guided conversation and strategy. And what you'll find is if I were to translate a salesperson's rant or ramble, it would be 18 pages of no strategy, no direction, of just going in and out of a conversation. This is a very direct sort of guided conversation. It takes you a couple minutes to read through it. You have chances to jump in, out, and go back into it, but it does cover a lot of different points to preempt a lot of things that happen. And so we live by 3 Ps. Is, if you can predict the behavior, like, if you can predict that people are going to be defensive about something, if there's going to be sticker shock, then we do something to preempt that in order to prevent it. And so predict, preempt, prevent is one of the tools that we use in the Amplified training. And so this tool is predicting a lot of things that are happening and preempting that in order to prevent it. So there's a lot of psychology in this in terms of the applied use of it and why we're forewarning people on something. We're giving them an analogy to think about in terms of flying a plane, which is not a new one. The whole concept of turbulence is not a new concept for people that have been in the mortgage industry. And so I will go ahead and show it. What is the best way to share it here? Let's just go with that. Okay, I think people can see it. People can see the script.
Yep.
And what I'd like for you guys to do is, as I'm going through it, if you have questions, just speak up, say something. Let's try to keep this flowing, because I want to give you the rationale behind each piece. And Dave, I'd ask you as well to chime in if we see a piece that we can do to make it a little bit more modern or fitting what's going on right now. And so, first of all, any questions before I start? Not all at once.
Go ahead.
All right, we're good. So let's say, Jacqueline, do you want to be my partner in this, and I'll have this conversation with you, and I'll just use you, even though there's really no place for you to talk. Now that I think about it, but I say so. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I want to tell you that, by the way, the context. This is after you've locked the loan or after the application. So that's the timing of this. And I think it's important what do people typically do in this is a lot of loan officers will promise a perfect transaction, smooth, and they set the expectation that nothing will go wrong. And then when the slightest thing goes wrong, people see it as the world went wrong. It's only because the expectations were set in such a way. So if we level set expectations and prepare them for the fact that this is going to be an interesting ride, then it works out well. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I want to tell you that I'm excited about being able to help you guide you through this process. Now, as we move forward, there are a few things that we need to be on the same page about in order to ensure that we reach your goals to get this loan on time and under budget with no surprises. So there's your branding there. I'm sure you've been watching on the news and seeing how low interest rates are, resulting in the biggest refi boom in history. As a result, some mortgage companies are experiencing huge delays because they don't have the systems to meet demand. The reality is that many of those stories are true, but they don't have to be true for us. So here you're preempting what people are seeing in the news, and you're also preparing them to understand what makes you different. It's a differentiating statement. I say that because oftentimes the communication between loan officer and borrowers is poor at best. Promises are made that can't be kept. Expectations are set that aren't realistic, and the appropriate time isn't allocated to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. What I'm doing here is also sharing with them that there's a lot of work that you guys have to do to be able to bring this loan to close. If you don't share sort of what's happening behind the scenes, a loan officer, a real estate agent can take for granted all of the details that you guys have to deal with. And so this is critical for you guys to do this, especially to set up the referral relationship, which is another critical point here. And so that is why here at Zenith Home Loans, we're held accountable to what we call the Zenith Way, which is a commitment to delivering this loan on time, under budget, with no surprises. That promise is what has kept us strong while so many others have failed. And so this statement here, I share this with you to illustrate. This is what we call the entering of a tie down. This is where you start to add value. I share all this with you because of this. It's the what's in it for you. So I share all this with you to illustrate the importance of us working together throughout this process. My job is in essence very similar to that of an airline pilot, to get you from point A to point B safely and on time. It may be bumpy at times, or there may be some unexpected turbulence, but my commitment to you is to get you to your end goal. I'm also committed to making sure that the process is as enjoyable as possible for you, so that I may earn that title of trusted advisor and referrals to your friends and family. So again, we're starting to tee up that conversation that needs to happen. Given all the complexities and changes within today's lending guidelines, I will be spending the majority of my time overseeing the process and making sure that the underwriters have everything they need to move forward. Unfortunately, that doesn't leave me much time to seek out new relationships, which is why I focus so intently on servicing my clients. I have found that by putting my efforts into making sure that this is a smooth and enjoyable process for my clients, that they help me in return by referring their friends and family. And trust me, I know as well as anyone that the gift of a referral has to be earned, and I'm committed to doing just that.
I love that line, guys. I think this is the part where I just think we can be more intentional about getting more client referrals. And I know I'm sure you're getting a fair amount now. I just wonder, because it's so much easier when it is a client referral, right? They're pre-sold, you took care of their friend, they just want you to take care of them. So when you get that, so that's the purpose of this. I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I love that line.
No, this is good. This is really good.
Let's bold and underline that line, because I just think that I know that we can be a lot more intentional about getting the client to think about giving us a referral, and it's up to us. If they're not referring us and they think we did a great job, we haven't done a good enough job of making sure they understand how important it is that we want that referral and that we need that referral and we expect them to give it to us. This line to me is just gold. I know as well as anyone that the gift of a referral has to be earned, and I'm committed to doing that. So that's freaking awesome. I love that.
And to me, the reason why I like that statement is that a lot of times asking for referrals is uncomfortable for people. And for me, it felt more along my values of saying, look, just because I'm doing this, I'm not entitled to your referral. It has to be earned. And it goes alongside with them now because I've told them that they're going to be looking for things that I'm doing to earn that referral. And so we're teeing up the prospect to be able to see this. So, it has to be earned, and I'm committed to doing just that. So if anyone does come to mind that I might be able to serve, I would be honored to help them in any way I can. So this is our first little ask. We've been kind of teeing it up and peppering it throughout. So going back to now, this is a big part here of preempting your service arrangement and your review. How are they going to review your process? So in today's world, transparency isn't a choice. And like most services, you will be given the opportunity to rate this experience. I want you to know that we are committed to giving you a 5-star service, throughout the entire process. So if at any time you feel that you're not getting 5-star service, I ask that you let me know immediately so that I may remedy that situation. So now you're trying to open that door to make sure if something goes wrong, I mean, you guys want to know about that. You don't want to wait till the end and 3 or 4 or 5, 10 things went wrong, or maybe it was a misunderstanding around an expectation and then they don't say anything. But if they tell you, you get a chance to jump in and do that. And also research shows that if you make a mistake and they tell you and you remedy it, that the service levels actually go, or the service ratings actually go up, because people understand mistakes and they respect people that can own up to them and go above and beyond to correct it. And so it's a good opportunity to find that. So now we're transitioning back to turbulence. So just like any airline flight, there's bound to be some kind of turbulence during the process. When turbulence is unexpected, it can be scary and cause stress. But when the pilot is able to prepare the passengers ahead of time, the turbulence can go mostly unnoticed. So as we begin our journey together, there may be some kind of turbulence. My job is to foresee those rough spots as much as possible ahead of time to avoid them. But sometimes they do come unexpectedly. The good news is I have been doing this for a long time, and I have a great flight crew that knows exactly how to handle any kind of turbulence. So I just want to make sure that if for some reason we need to make adjustments or if we need additional documentation, that you will make yourselves available to provide me with that information so we can work together to reach your goals. Does that sound like a good plan? So this right here, this statement was, I forget the reason, but if you remember, this would have been 5 years ago. There were a lot of, I totally forget where in the process, but after the loan has been closed, there are people calling after closing to check on documents. What do they call that?
Post-closing.
Post-closing steps. Yeah. And so this was shocking to people. And so we were trying to preempt some of that sort of stuff. But this is also, if something changes and you go back to them and say, hey, by the way, a little bit of turbulence, not a big deal. We know exactly what to do. I just need these 2 pieces signed. They're like, okay, great. You have that leverage because they still want the loan. You've preempted it. You've given a metaphor for them to understand it, an analogy, and then you get to move back into it. And so those are this. And then the last part is once they say, does that sound like a good plan? They say, yeah, great. And says, well, you know, what really makes us different is that we guarantee an on-time closing. And if for some reason we miss the date and it's our fault, we will pay you and the seller $1,000 per day. We should probably add something
It's
until
just
it
supposed to
closes.
say we can make a promise like that, not can make a promise.
But we say $1,000 per day until it closes.
For every day we're late. It's just because we can make a promise.
We can make a promise like that because of our stellar track record and outstanding service team. So now this whole piece, I've had several clients when they got a hold of this, called every branch managers, call every single loan in process and just run through the script, and the amount of referrals they generated and the amount of stress they alleviated by just resetting and level setting expectations was invaluable. So let's open up for questions and thoughts and feedback, and fight back on it too. I mean, if there's something that's struggling, let's have that dialogue to see what was the rationale, and maybe we can change it to fit, or maybe there's a good rationale that I wasn't clear about.
I have a couple questions to start off. First one is, anyone that's on this call, is anyone directly asking for a referral or indirectly or teeing it up like this already in their process?
Before anybody answers, I can tell you I never was this intentional. And I agree with Renee. Most people aren't really comfortable doing it. And why? I don't know why that is. We want it to happen, but we just don't. Why is it, Renee? Why do people not do it?
Referral aversion is the fear of hurting an existing relationship by asking for more business. It can feel like you're creeping in on the relationship, meaning we're doing this, and now I'm also asking for these things. It can feel self-absorbed. It can feel all sorts of things, which is why we structured it this way, to be able to say we're offering this additional value. And the rationale is, I'm going to be making sure, and this is true, guys, you are overseeing so many different things that need your attention. That does take away time from self-promotion and prospecting and marketing and things. And so you're saying, look, and you have what's called psychic debt here. What's happening? You have leverage, because until the loan is funded, the client will do anything. And that's, if you remember what it's like to buy a house, it's scary as hell. And if you need something from me, you need me to chop that tree down to get my loan, where's the axe? I'll chop the tree down, whatever it is. There's that leverage that we have. And you have to be able to remind the client the amount of work involved. And that's an influence principle, that if somebody says, hey, thank you so much, you say, hey, no problem. We do that for everyone. What you just told the client is that you're not special. What Dr. Robert Cialdini, who's a #1 expert in influence, is the most quoted social psychologist alive today. He says that's how we bungle moments of influence. What we need to say is, you know what, hey, thanks for appreciating that. I have been working hard on this, and I'm glad you noticed how special you are to us. And now all of a sudden,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Renee.
No, it's okay. It's just making sure that we leverage that point. And so when we're saying we are going to be doing all these things, making sure that the underwriters have what they need and going through all those elements, and unfortunately it doesn't leave me much time, but I'm okay with that. And I want to earn the 5-star service, which is you actually win. They win when they get 5-star service. Everybody wins if you're being treated right. And in exchange, I would just love for you to tell some people. So if anybody comes to mind, it's even a better question is who comes to mind, not if, right? But we're kind of starting with the soft asks. And at the end, I would, if you feel the energy's there, I'd say, you know what, gosh, I'm super excited to work for you. So if you don't mind me asking, who comes to mind as to somebody else we could also run through the same process? I also use a statement that says, and this is something I personally believe intently. And let me ask, before I even tell you this, how many of you, by show of hands, believe that right now, if anybody were to buy a home right now, in 10 years, they will have a lot more money than they started with today?
Yeah, A lot more.
Equity, right? Okay,
That
so
was-
if you believe that there's going to be a massive amount of equity built in value and more wealth built, and we're fiduciaries to our clients, we have a fiduciary duty, then I have a fiduciary duty to explain this to them. If I truly believe that and I want you to be successful, then I need to be really good at explaining why now is a time to invest. And so what I might end, if the energy's high, say, look, here's the reality and what I'm most excited about. You're doing this today. And in 10 years, we're going to have a conversation and you're going to look back to the day today that you decided, and you're going to look at the amount of equity you have in that home and the wealth that you've built. And it's going to be because of this decision you made today. So here's a fun question. Who else would you like to give that gift to now? Who else would you like to look across next to you and say, you know what, we did this together. Look at the $100,000 that we built, or the $50,000 that we built together. And that is the power that you have by just, who else do we want to help together?
I love that script.
That to me is but that's like from the heart. That is like truly something that I believe. And then nobody, you know what the most viral content is on the internet? It's the stuff that makes the person who shares it seem cool and like an expert. If I can share something that I go, look at what I'm sharing, and I just added value to all of you guys because I shared this one life hack. Life hacks are, look at, I didn't know you could do this with this, or this one little tip and trick. If I were to tell you, if you had some insight to a company that was legal, a tip on a stock that was going to go up, and you could tell your best friends, how cool would you feel being able to tell them and they earned, $50,000 on their $100 investment? You'd feel like $1 million. That's what real estate is right now. And if you can make that case to say, look, there is a reason to buy now, but you look to the client and say, 10 years from now, you and I, we're going to look back on this decision you made today, and you're going to look at all of that wealth that you built. And it's because you were smart enough to see this today. So the question is who do you want to see next to you?
That's
what friends do you want to do?
Really cool way to. That's a really cool way to say that. Casey,
So
what were you going to say? I'm sorry, because I know we kind of just took over. But did you do this intentionally now, or something?
No, it's been one of the things that I wanted to figure out the best way to frame that and intentionally ask for it to where it doesn't seem awkward or forced, and this is a good way to build it in. So my follow-up to that was, when you go through this script, are you really nailing all of this, or are you kind of having this more conversationally with them and kind of adjust as you go through?
Always conversational. And now in the beginning, I tell people this all the time. There are no shortcuts to learning anything. You got to stumble. And if I'm in your shoes, I practice this with 10 people, hey, can I practice this on you? And I would practice it. I'd call your real estate agent. Hey, I'm going to be doing this. If you're friends with them and you do business, hey, I'm going to be doing this after each one of our calls. Can I just practice this on you? And then just go practice. You read about it and you'll know. And there's a process and a technique to reading scripting is you keep your finger where you're reading. Because what happens, let's say you're reading, and they interrupt you. You put your finger right there. And then you have this conversation. It might be 5 minutes. And then it goes a little dead. You just pick right up right here where your fingers. If you don't put your finger there and they go off, and now you're going, you look like, oh, here's where I was, right? So it literally is a technique where I teach people, I said, put your finger on the darn thing. Or if you notice how, if you see my screen, I use this, and if they interrupt me, I'll just do this. And so I know that this is where I picked up. And so they may say, on time and under budget, and the client goes, that's a great line. It's a why on time do people lie? And I go on this conversation about how important on time is. And here's the reason why on time is important to you, because you may have another mortgage payment. You don't want to be, sitting in a place that, has a U-Haul truck with the furniture on the back, and you have this conversation. And then you go on for 5 minutes. You can easily go, so, hey, John, I'm sure you've been watching the news and seeing all the interest rates and blah, 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 blah. And then, so they interrupt you right over here, eyes wide out, and say, yeah, there's a lot of detail in the mortgage process. And they go on to detailed conversation, and it goes on 5 minutes, and you go, well, John, that's why here at Zenith, you can just pick right up, right over here. And then they interrupt you again, and they're chatting away. And you say, and at the end you say, so I share all of this with you because you can just pick right up where that is. So it can be a conversation, but you have to be able to know where you are on it. And you'll find the more you do this, you'll find some transitions, but there is a logical sequence to this. And each part of these pieces are there for a reason. But what I tell people, learn it as it is first, master it, then make it your own. Other questions, thoughts?
All I was going to say was I was never comfortable asking for the referral, except like I never hesitated to ask somebody if I talked somebody out of doing a refinance, because it just doesn't make sense. You should not refinance. So now you owe me another, like, who do you know that needs a loan? Because I just did all this for you. I'm not getting a loan. So you got to give me a loan. And like in a joking way, that was the only time I was really intentional, and it wasn't professional. I mean, it was friendly and I would get referrals doing it, but it wasn't, I think you're right. I never understood until you just said, it feels like you're asking for something that you haven't earned when you ask for referrals. And it is a little uncomfortable. So maybe that's the problem with the reason that we didn't get as many referrals, and the best salespeople have no problem asking for referrals.
Well, I think right now too, with the current market that we're in, it's not, hey, you know, this person might know 2 or 3 people that will sell or purchase a home in the next year. It's every single person knows someone who hasn't yet refinanced their home. There are way more available referrals at this point in time. So finding a way to ask for them is going to be much more beneficial in the current market.
And if you guys are doing this, Dave, do you guys use Mortgage Coach to somehow project out what the equity will be in 5, 10, 15 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I would take that number, I would literally circle that number and say, right now this is a unique time period. You can give this $10,000, $50,000, whatever the number is, gift to somebody right now. Like, who are the people that matter to you? Who are the ones that you want around you in 10 years? Who are the ones that you know will need this in 10 years because maybe they're getting older, maybe they're going to need to retire, maybe they have kids that are sick. Who are the ones? Let's make a list of those people. And I would say, and I've got people that have made me list of 10 people, and we just go through each one and we go through the same analysis. And some end up doing it, some don't. My job is to make sure that people get this information, because I know in 10 years, if I didn't, they're going to look at me pretty upset.
Yeah, the way you say that, think about where we're going to be 10 years from now. We're going to look back at this moment and all the equity that you're going to have built. So who do you know that you'd like to give that gift to? That's a great way to say that line. The key to this is being intentional. That's what this comes down to, is becoming intentional about asking for referrals and making it part of your handoff process, right? Because this is right after you get them locked in, you're ready to hand off the file. You still have more work to do, but having this conversation, I love the idea of teeing it up so that if you do have to ask, or the processor has to ask for something you didn't plan on asking for, and that's an unnerving, we've always said that, it's like, if I'm asking the customer for like a pay stub or a W-2 late in the process, I know that when I got asked on my first house that, hey, we need another pay stub. And I'm like, it's like a week before closing. I'm like, am I getting this loan? Like, why are you asking me for something like that a week before I'm closing? It seems like, are we getting the house? Because my wife thinks we're moving. And so it's like uncomfortable. So preempting all of that, and maybe that's part of the story, that you use something like that, so that I just want you to know that if I do call you, we're going to call you early in the process. We're not going to call you late in the process. I just think there's an opportunity here to really, not that we need more business today, because we don't, but what we need is more easy business, more layup business, more, my friend said, I have to call Jacqueline. And so Jacqueline, you're my lender. My friend won't let me, I want to do my loan with you, right? So when you get that customer, it's like, well, this is great. Like, there's nothing, I mean, you still have to earn the business, you still have to do your part, but what a difference it would make. And if we decided to become super intentional about this, how much more repeat referral business, or how much more referral business do we get? Does anybody do this intentionally? John, you've been doing this for a long time. Have you ever, I say that because you're old, but have you ever intentionally asked for referrals like this?
If it's part of the conversation, if it becomes organic, yes. I find that it's hard to do it in the transaction, but the email that we automatically send afterwards, it's asking for referrals. I get a ton of responses to that saying, absolutely, I'll refer you. But in the transaction, it is a little quirky unless you kind of get there. Kind of like what you said, like you owe me a loan or something. And you can kind of use that line. Like if somebody's like, this is amazing, say, well, who you know or whatever. But yeah, I agree.
We're not good at, what else is
No.
hard, Renee, is we're not good at accepting a compliment. Right? Like we
Most
don't.
people are not.
Why is that?
I suck at it. There's a lot of reasons why most of us don't do it. Some of us don't like the attention. Some of us, even though we want to know if we're doing well, when we hear it, we feel the need to downplay it. There's all sorts of reasons. But what he calls those moments are moments of power. When I say Cialdini, he calls them moments of power. And there's two people that bungle the moments of power. They trip over it. Or there are people that are sleuths, is what he calls sleuth, and they take advantage of that moment. The bungler is somebody says, wow, hey, thank you for the great service. The bungler will say, hey, that's no problem. We do that for everybody. And there's literal stories in his book about clients that have canceled $1 million contracts to say, you know what, they do this for everybody. I thought we were special, and they move on. Versus the sleuth will say, you know what, thanks so much. We did that because I know, if you're talking to a friend or somebody else, Dave says, hey, thanks, Dave. Renee, I really appreciate the script. I say, no problem, Dave. I know if the tables were reversed, you'd do the same for me. And now all of a sudden that creates like a little chip that Dave owes me something, right? Just by using that, I know you do the same for me. And he's like, yeah, of course I would. And it keeps this really cool relationship going. But there's also the piece of that moment of power where we say, thank you very much. I'm glad you noticed that. And, I do this because I love it. And this is why I always have to ask, because I want to share this gift with as many different people as possible. Who are those people that you want to give this gift to? And I think it's valuable when you go through your mortgage cost analysis and you get to that number, that you circle it somehow, you zoom in on it on Zoom, whatever you say. If you could give somebody, let me give you an example. What's an average equity built up over 5 years in your area?
We've seen in the last 5 years, it's been crazy. Jack or Casey, what?
$150,000, depending on where you are.
In 5 years. Yeah.
In 5 years.
You circle that $150,000, and I might say, hey, you know what? Can I ask you a funny question? And it's like, yeah. I said, if you could give somebody $150,000 gift to your closest friends, who would you want to give it to? And who are those names? What are they? It's great. I said, well, here's what you're doing right now. And this same gift is available to those people. And if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to run through the same analysis and show it to them and how it works. And now your analysis is a value add. I'm more than happy to show you. Somebody asks me how I do, how I put this brain on screen here, right, on Zoom, and how I do different things, and all of a sudden they're like, Renee, can you do that? I was like, you know what? I'd be more than happy. What if I was selling that brain that was there? This one, if you guys aren't looking, right? What if I was selling that brain? People are like, I want to get that brain. So, well, I'd be more than happy to show you how that works. And what if that was my sales pitch? Even though I'm not selling this brain, it's a value add that they want. And now all of a sudden I'd say, I'd be more than happy to, be willing to show them how it works. My schedule's a little tight, but I'll make time for them. False time constraints are critical.
False time constraints? Is that what you said?
False time constraints reduce stress for people. They reduce stress. And so if somebody, let's say, somebody sits down at your table that you don't know, and they say, hey, can you talk for a minute? You're thinking, what's going on? You roll into, a salesperson walks in to try to pitch you something and say, can I show you what I'm talking about? You already start stressing because you know how long this is going to take. But if that salesperson walks in and says, I've only got 2 minutes. If you don't mind, can I just show you this? Okay, I got 2 minutes. Yeah, go ahead. It just reduces stress.
Interesting. Well, this is good stuff. Does anybody else have any questions? Thanks, Renee. This was really good. I'll get this emailed out to everybody. And I'd love to hear, first of all, he's right. You've got to internalize the script. You can't just, it's got to be conversational. If you're reading it, you're not prepared to deliver it, in my opinion. And you're only prepared to deliver it when you've read it and repeated it multiple times yourself so that you sound natural. It's got to sound like a conversation that you've had before, and it can't sound like you're stumbling over it. And but at the same time, it would be really cool to hear some feedback. So I'll ask, like, has anybody used the script yet? And I don't want to, like, I know that some of you will embrace it, so all of you should. I can't make it mandatory. I guess I can. Maybe I can. And
I will say this though, Dave, don't wait until you sound perfect to use it. Don't wait. It's what I said. You can't skip it. You're gonna have to practice, but you're also gonna have to stumble on it with real clients. You're gonna have to stumble. Just know that that's part of the process. So don't be afraid to screw it up. Even if you get it half right, it's still better than what you've been doing.
Another point real quick on this is that I said it was too long when I first saw it. And Renee's response was, you're already doing something. It's not planned. You're covering everything that you think you're supposed to cover, but if you don't have something specific that you're covering, you're already doing this, and it's probably taking you longer. And because you're hitting different things all the time on this. So my guess, it's not my guess. I'm certain that once you have this thing down, that you're going to be able to deliver it with a lot more efficiency in the process than you think, because you're already doing something, right? You're not just going, okay, you're locked, I'll talk to you later. Like, you're already having a conversation, and it's just questionable what you're saying and what you're covering. So, and we've talked about this a million times, setting the right expectations, managing expectations is such a critical aspect of the sales process, and can create a raving fan. If you overpromise and say, you'll never hear it, we're done, you won't need anything else, I would never tell a customer they're not going to need anything else until it's clear to close. So at this point in the process, there's always a chance you're going to need something else. Anyway, this is great stuff, Renee. Thank you very much.
For sure. And I just had one of those moments of where I realized something. Jacqueline, I am so sorry I have not responded to that video. I'm looking, I'm like, it just had that cold feeling. I'm like, you guys sent me that video. So you will be getting a response from me today. My apologies.
Wow. I need you to send me that updated script, because you made changes to it. And the one I have isn't.
Sure.
Is it just,
Sure.
It's in Dropbox?
Sure. Yes, I'll send it to you right now.
All right. And then I'll get it out to everybody.
Perfect.
Do you have anything else?
It for me, unless you guys have questions.
Right on. Let's have an awesome day. Stay neutral, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.